A 12-step program is a set of guiding principles outlining a course of action for recovery from addiction, compulsion, or other behavioral problems. Originally proposed by Alcoholics Anonymous as a method of recovery from alcoholism, the 12 steps were first published in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism in 1939. The method was then adapted and became the foundation of other 12-step programs. As summarized by the American Psychological Association, the process involves the following: admitting that one cannot control one's addiction or compulsion, recognizing a higher power that can give strength, examining past errors with the help of a sponsor, making amends for these errors, learning to live a new life with a new code of behavior, helping others who suffer from the same addictions or compulsions. Overview: 12-step methods have been adopted to address a wide range of substance abuse and dependency problems. Over 200 self-help organizations often known as fellowships with a worldwide membership of millions now employ 12-step principles for recovery. Narcotics Anonymous was formed by addicts who did not relate to the specifics of alcohol dependency. Similar demographic preferences related to the addict's drug of choice has led to the creation of Cocaine Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous, Pills Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous and Nicotine Anonymous. Behavioral issues such as compulsion for, and/or addiction to, gambling, crime, food, sex, hoarding, debting and work are addressed in fellowships such as Gamblers Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Clutterers Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous and Workaholics Anonymous. Auxiliary groups such as Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, for friends and family members of alcoholics and addicts, respectively, are part of a response to treating addiction as a disease that is enabled by family systems. Codependence Anonymous addresses compulsions related to relationships, referred to as codependency. History: Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 12-step fellowship, was founded on August 11, 1938 by Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, known to AA members as Bill W. and Dr. Bob, in Akron, Ohio. They established the tradition within the anonymous 12-step programs of using only first names at the level of press, radio and film. As AA was growing in the 1930s and 1940s, definite guiding principles began to emerge as the 12 traditions. A singleness of purpose emerged as Tradition 5, each group has but one primary purpose to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Consequently, drug addicts who do not suffer from the specifics of alcoholism involved in AA hoping for recovery technically are not welcome in closed meetings unless they have a desire to stop drinking alcohol. The reason for such emphasis on alcoholism as the problem is to overcome denial and distraction. Thus the principles of AA have been used to form many numbers of other fellowships for those recovering from various pathologies, each of which in turn emphasizes recovery from the specific malady which brought the sufferer into the fellowship. In 1953 AA gave permission for Narcotics Anonymous to use its steps and traditions. 12 steps. These are the original 12 steps as published by Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. In some cases, Where other 12-step groups have adapted the AA steps as guiding principles, they have been altered to emphasize principles important to those particular fellowships, and to remove gender-biased language. Most of the alternate wordings are in Step 1 and Step 12. See List of 12-step alternate wordings. 12 traditions. The 12 traditions accompany the 12 steps. The traditions provide guidelines for group governance. They were developed in AA in order to help resolve conflicts in the areas of publicity, religion and finances. Most 12-step fellowships have adopted these principles for their structural governance. The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous are as follows. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. AA, as such, ought never be organized. But we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Process. Recovery is sought in several areas: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. For addicts and alcoholics, the physical dimension is best described by the allergy-like bodily reaction resulting in the compulsion to continue using substances after the initial use. For groups not related to substance abuse, this physical manifestation could be more varied, including, but not limited to, compulsive hoarding, distractibility, eating disorders, dysfunctional enabling, hyperactivity, hypomania, insomnia, irritability, lack of motivation, laziness, mania, panic attacks, psychosomatic illnesses, poor impulse control, procrastination, self-injury and suicide attempts. The statement in the first step that the individual is powerless over the substance abuse-related behavior at issue refers to the lack of control over this compulsion, which persists despite any negative consequences that may be endured as a result. The emotional obsession is described as the cognitive processes that cause the individual to repeat the compulsive behavior after some period of abstinence, either knowing that the result will be an inability to stop or operating under the delusion that the result will be different. The description in the first step of the life of the alcoholic or addict as unmanageable refers to the lack of choice that the mind of the addict or alcoholic affords concerning whether to drink or use again. The illness of the spiritual dimension, or spiritual malady, is considered in all 12-step groups to be self-centeredness. This model is not intended to be a scientific explanation, it is only a perspective that 12-step organizations have found useful. The process of working with the steps is intended to replace self-centeredness with a growing moral consciousness and a willingness for self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. In 12-step groups, this is known as a spiritual awakening or religious experience. This should not be confused with abreaction, which produces dramatic, but ephemeral, changes. In 12-step fellowships, spiritual awakening is believed to develop, most frequently, slowly over a period of time. It is suggested that members regularly attend meetings with other members who share their particular recovery problem. In accordance with the first step, 12-step groups emphasize self-admission by members of the problem they are recovering from. It is in this spirit that members often identify themselves along with an admission of their problem, for example. "Hi, I'm Wendy and I'm an alcoholic." Such catchphrases are now widely associated with support groups. Some meetings are known as dual identity groups, which encourage attendance from certain demographics. Some areas have, for example, women's groups, men's groups, and groups for gay, lesbian, and transgender people. There are also in some areas beginners groups as well as old-timer groups that limit who can share, or speak during the meeting, by the length of time the members have in that fellowship. Sponsorship. A sponsor is a more experienced person in recovery who guides the less experienced aspirant through the program. New members in 12-step programs are encouraged to secure a relationship with at least one sponsor. Publications from 12-step fellowships emphasize that sponsorship is a one-on-one relationship of shared experiences focused on working the 12 steps. According to Narcotics Anonymous, sponsors share their experience, strength, and hope with their sponsees. A sponsor's role is not that of a legal advisor, a banker, a parent, a marriage counselor, or a social worker. Nor is a sponsor a therapist offering some sort of professional advice. A sponsor is simply another addict in recovery who is willing to share his or her journey through the 12 steps. Sponsors and sponsees participate in activities that lead to spiritual growth. These may include practices such as literature discussion and study, meditation, and writing. Completing the 12 steps implies being competent to sponsor newcomers in recovery. Sponsees typically do their 5th step, review their moral inventory written as part of the 4th step, with their sponsor. The 5th step, as well as the 9th step, have been compared to confession and penitence. Many, such as Michel Foucault, noted such practices produce intrinsic modifications in the persona exonerating, redeeming and purifying thema it unburdens them of their wrongs, liberates them, and promises their salvation. The personal nature of the behavioral issues that lead to seeking help in 12-step fellowships results in a strong relationship between sponsee and sponsor. As the relationship is based on spiritual principles, it is unique and not generally characterized as friendship. Fundamentally, the sponsor has the single purpose of helping the sponsee recover from the behavioral problem that brought the sufferer into 12-step work, which reflexively helps the sponsor recover. A study of sponsorship as practiced in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous found that providing direction and support to other alcoholics and addicts is associated with sustained abstinence for the sponsor, but suggested that there were few short-term benefits for the sponsee's 1-year sustained abstinence rate. Effectiveness. Alcoholics Anonymous is the largest of all the 12-step programs, followed by Narcotics Anonymous. The majority of 12-step members are recovering from addiction to alcohol or other drugs. The majority of 12-step programs, however, address illnesses other than addiction. For example, the third largest 12-step program, Al-Anon, assists family members and friends of people who have alcoholism and other addictions. About 20% of 12-step programs are for addiction recovery. The other 80% address a variety of problems from debt to depression. It would be an error to assume the effectiveness of 12-step methods at treating problems in one domain translates to all or to another domain, therefore readers are directed to relevant sections in each group's article. Criticism. The criticisms of 12-step groups are as varied as the pathologies they address. Most studies evaluating the efficacy of AA are not definitive. For the most part, they associate the duration of participation with success in quitting drinking but do not show that the program caused that outcome. Further, about 40% of AA members drop out during the first year, raising the possibility that the people who remain may be the ones who are most motivated to improve. Their varied success rate and the belief in a higher power suggested in them, are common criticisms of their universal applicability and efficacy. Only about 3% of people suffering from alcoholism and attending Alcoholics Anonymous involved in a study found recovery results without relapse from the 12-step program's treatment. Confidentiality. The 12 traditions encourage members to practice the spiritual principle of anonymity in the public media, and members are also asked to respect each other's confidentiality. This is a group norm, however, and not legally mandated. there are no legal consequences to discourage those attending 12-step groups from revealing information disclosed during meetings. Statutes on group therapy do not encompass those associations that lack a professional therapist or clergyman to whom confidentiality and privilege might apply. Professionals and paraprofessionals who refer patients to these groups, to avoid both civil liability and licensure problems, have been advised that they should alert their patients that, at any time, their statements made in meetings may be disclosed. Cultural identity. One review warned of detrimental iatrogenic effects of 12-step philosophy and labeled the organizations as cults, while another review asserts that these programs bore little semblance to religious cults and that the techniques used appeared beneficial to some. Another study found that a 12-step program's focus on self-admission of having a problem increases deviant stigma and strips members of their previous cultural identity, replacing it with the deviant identity. Another study asserts that the prior cultural identity may not be replaced entirely, but rather members found adapted a bicultural identity. See also, addiction recovery groups, drug rehabilitation, group psychotherapy, effectiveness of Alcoholics Anonymous, list of 12-step groups, self-help groups for mental health, recovery model, references. Bibliography, Adesso, V.J. Diversity Confronts the Monolith. Psych Critiques 40, Borman, P.D., and Dixon, D.N. Spirituality and the 12 Steps of Substance Abuse Recovery. Journal of Psychology and Theology 26, 287 Euro 291 Caputi, M. Life on Life's Terms, Quietism and the Misuse of Psychoanalysis. Journal for the Psychoanalysis of Culture and Society 7, 241 Euro 250 Carroll, K.M., Nitsch, C., Ball, S.A., McKentz, E., and Rounceville, B.J. Treatment of Cocaine and Alcohol Dependence with Psychotherapy and Disulfiram. Addiction 93, 713 Euro 727 doi, 10.1046 per joule 1360-0443.1998.9357137 x. PMIDA 9692270 Fenton, L.R., Ciro, J.J., Nitsch, C., Frankfurter, T.L., and Carroll, K.M. Perspective is Everything, The Predictive Validity Working Alliance Instruments. Journal of Psychotherapy Practice and Research 10, 262 Euro 268 Finn, J. Computer-Based Self-Help Groups, Online Recovery for Addictions, Computers in Human Services 13 ppA 21 Euro 41 Freimuth, M. Psychotherapists' Beliefs about the Benefits of 12-Step Groups. Alcoholism Treatment Quarterly 14, 95 Euro 102 doi, 10.1300 per joule 020 V14N0308 Freimuth, M. Integrating Group Psychotherapy and 12-Step Work, A Collaborative Approach. International Journal of Group Psychotherapy 50, 297 Euro 314. PMIDA 10,883,547 Galanta, M., Dermatis, H., Mansky, P., McIntyre, J., and Perez Fuentes, G. Substance Abusing Physicians, Monitoring and 12-Step-Based Treatment. The American Journal on Addiction 16, 117 Euro 123 doi, 10.1080/105504906011844456. PMIDA 17,453,613 Gullickson, T. Review of Treating Addicted Survivors of Trauma. Psych Critiques 40, 913 doi, 10.1037/004013 Harris, J., Best, D., Gossop, M., Marshall, J., Mann, L.H., Manning, V., Ale Prior Alcoholics Anonymous Affiliation and the Acceptability of the 12 Steps to Patients Entering UK Statutory Addiction Treatment. Journal of Studies on Alcohol 64, 257 Euro 261. PMIDA 12,713,200 Holloran, L.K., and McMaster, essay applying a cultural competency framework to 12-step programs. Alcoholism Treatment Quarterly 23, 107 euro 120 doi, 10.1300 per joule 020 V23 N0408 Humphreys, K. The Trials of Alcoholics Anonymous. Addiction 101, 617 euro 618 doi, 10.1111 per joule 1360-0443.2006.01447x. PMIDA 16,669,879 Jaff, SL Preventing Relapse, Guidelines for the Psychiatrist. Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Clinics of North America 5, 213 euro 220 Kingree, J.B., and Thompson, M. 12-Step Groups, Attributions of Blame for Personal Sadness, Psychological Well-Being, and the Moderating Role of Gender. Journal of Applied Social Psychology 30, 499 euro 517 doi, 10.1111 per joule 1559-1816.2000 TBO2493X, Kurtz, L.F., and Fisher, M. 12-Step Recovery and Community Service. Health and Social Work 28, 137 euro 145 doi, 10.109328.2.137 Lyle, B. 12-Step Programs, An Update, Addictive Disorders and Their Treatment 2 ppA 19 euro 24 Lyle, B. 12-Step Programs, Authors Reply, Addictive Disorders and Their Treatment 2. PA 160 Louis, S. Review of Substance Use Disorders. A Practical Guide, Human Psychopharmacology. Clinical and Experimental 22, 108 doi, 10.1002/Hub 824, Miller, MM 12-Step Programs, An Update. Addictive Disorders and Their Treatment 2, 157 euro 160 doi, 10.1097/0132576-200302040-00007 Morgenstern, J., Bucks, D., Labovy, E., Blanchard, K.A., and Morgan, T.J. Examining Mechanisms of Action in 12-Step Treatment, The Role of 12-Step Cognitions. Journal of Studies on Alcohol 63, 665 euro 672. PMIDA 12,529,066 Sheehan, T. 12-Step Facilitation, A Necessary Treatment for Offenders. Journal of Forensic Psychology Practice 4, 71 euro 81 doi, 10.1300 per joule 158 V04N0305 Sayars, S.M., and Goodwin, L.R., J. Students' Reactions to Attending 12-Step Meetings, Implications for Counselor Education. Journal of Addictions and Offender Counseling 27, 113 euro 126 doi, 10.1002 per joule 2161-1874.2007 TBO0025X, Simkin, D. A 12-Step Treatment from a Development Perspective. Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Clinics of North America 5, 165 euro 175 Spiegel, B. The Use of the 12 Steps of the Anonymous Program to Heal Trauma. Journal of Social Work Practice in the Addictions 5, 103 euro 105 doi, 10.1300 per joule 160 V05 N0309 Westphal, J.R. Review of Clinician's Guide to Substance Abuse. The American Journal on Addictions 15, 111 euro 112 doi, 10.1080/105504905004191777 External links, The Origins of the 12 Steps,